Hi, you guys. I thought I would take this opportunity to go over a short PowerPoint giving a little bit more instruction on preterite versus imperfect. I noticed some of you guys struggled with that in the exam, so here's a little bit of extra help. The preterite versus the imperfect is hard for us as English speakers because we don't have this distinction in English. We have one past tense. In Spanish, however, there are two ways to express something that occurred in the past, the preterite and the imperfect. So what is the difference between the two? Well, the basic difference is that the preterite is used to express something that occurred over a clear set period of time, versus the imperfect is something that was either ongoing or occurred, over a period of time that's not clear. So as we see on this slide, we can compare the two sentences, mis amigos bailaron y mis amigos bailaban, preterite versus imperfect. So the ways that this would be translated to English would be mis amigos bailaron would be my friends danced. Using the preterite implies that that occurred one time in the past. Mis amigos bailaron ayer. Mis amigos bailaron el viernes pasado. Versus mis amigos bailaban, using the imperfect form of this verb implies that it's something that used to occur. Here we can see the translation, my friends used to dance. It's something that occurred over a much longer period of time. The conjugation of the preterite, most of you guys do seem to conjugate the verbs correctly. It's just deciding between the two, which is difficult. The preterite is more difficult because there are so many irregular verbs. It's just a lot of memorization. So again, here we have that the preterite is used for actions in the past that are seen as completed. Use of the preterite tense implies that the past action had a definite beginning and or a definite end. So we have this example. Juan habló por 2 horas con su mamá. If that event occurred over 2 hours, we know when it started, we know when it stopped. It's a completed action. Versus the imperfect is used for actions in the past that are not seen as completed. It implies that the past action did not have a definite beginning or definite end. Here we have the example, Juan hablaba español con su mamá. Juan used to speak Spanish with his mom. When did he start speaking Spanish with his mom? We don't know. When did he stop? We don't know. In this chart, we'll see kind of all the different uses of the imperfect and the preterite. Remember that aspect, which is this difference here, which one you use depends on the point of view of the speaker, and really any event could be described in either the preterite or the imperfect, depending on the context. So again, the imperfect is not focused on the beginning or ending of an action, but on the duration, versus the preterite, which is focused on the beginning or ending of an action. So when we have something like habitual actions in the past, which, in English we usually say used to do something, that's going to be the imperfect. Nosotros comíamos cada día en casa a las 5 de la tarde, right? We ate at 5 o'clock every day. When did we start eating at 5 o'clock? We don't know. When did we stop eating at 5 o'clock? We don't know. Versus this example, ayer yo comí a las 5 de la tarde, ¿qué significa, right? Well, I ate one time in the past at 5 o'clock. I put a sandwich in my mouth, I chewed it, I finished eating it, that event was over and done. That's the preterite. You also have the second layer here, where you're describing something that was happening in the background when, boom, the principal action occurred. So one example here is todos hablaban y bailaban en la fiesta cuando la mujer llegó. So everyone in the background was talking, was dancing when the woman arrived. This is the principal action in the foreground. With most descriptions in the past, we use the imperfect. Why? Because descriptions do not have a clear beginning or ending. The girl was tall. When did she start being tall? When did she stop being tall? We can't answer that question. She had a lot of friends. Same thing. This is kind of the big exception for the imperfect. Whenever you talk about time, it was 1 o'clock, it was 2 o'clock, it was 3:30. Or age, she was 15, he was 18. In the past, we use the imperfect. It's just also describing weather, which is a description. These are some mnemonic devices that my students in the past have found helpful. I don't know if you would find it helpful or not. They're a little strange. Do wit for the imperfect. Description used to was or were inside feelings in the past. Really this just means emotions. I was sad. I was happy. Do you start being sad or stop being sad in a clear, defined moment? No, emotions are not actions that occur over a clear period of time. And then we have telling time. CSIF for the preterite. Completed action, sequence of events, interrupting action, finite amount of time. So here we can do a couple examples. We have two sentences here. Yo blank con mis padres los fines de semana versus yo blank con mis padres el fin de semana pasado. We have two very slightly different contexts. One is that I went out with my parents on the weekends, plural, versus I went out with my parents last weekend. Which is the imperfect, which is the preterite? Well, if it's something you did habitually and we don't know when it started, when it stopped, we use the imperfect. Yo salía. Versus last weekend is over and done with. That has a very clear beginning and ending. Yo salí con mis padres. Here we have time. It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, we're going to use the imperfect. With time, we use the imperfect. Eran las 4 de la tarde. Cuando ellos, when they arrived a la fiesta. Well, to walk in the door, to arrive to a party one time in the past, that has a very clear beginning and ending to it. We use the preterite. Ellos llegaron. Cuando Miguel blank 15 años, when Miguel was 15, well, we know time and age in the past is the imperfect. So, Miguel tenía. Siempre. The word siempre, always, almost always implies use of the imperfect. It's something that always happened. It was habitual. Siempre jugaba fútbol con sus amigos. Y aquí we have an example of something that was happening in the background when the foreground event occurred. Nosotros mirábamos televisión. We were watching television, imperfecto, cuando de repente nos llamó mi hermano. My brother called us. Here we have a direct object pronoun, which we'll be getting to. In 1920, New York was less big than it is now, and there were less people. Well, here in both of these examples, we are describing New York. So with descriptions, no clear beginning and ending with a description, we use the imperfect. Nueva York era menos grande y había menos personas. So this paragraph here that was on your exam, let's go over the answers, and you'll have a better idea of what you got right, what you got wrong, and why. So here we have, en la noche del Día de los Reyes, mis hermanos y yo, in the night of the day of the King's Day, my brothers and I were very nervous. Well, what did we say about emotions? Being nervous, does that start and stop in a very clear, defined moment? No, it does not. So we use the imperfect. The imperfect of estar for nosotros es estábamos. And also make sure you have the accent marks in correctly. Here we have telling time. It was 8:30. We learned that telling time is always in the imperfect. So we have eran las 8:30 cuando mi madre nos dijo a la cama. When my mother said, go to bed. Normalmente nosotros no blank ir a dormir. Normally, we didn't want to sleep, to go to sleep, but that night was different. So here we have an emotion, wanting to go to bed. It wasn't even something that, we're not talking about this one night, right? We're talking about normally. Normally in the past, we didn't want to go to sleep, but tonight was different. So we have an emotion that occurred not over a clear set period of time. We use the imperfect, queríamos. Por eso nosotros blank rápidamente. Therefore, we went to bed very quickly. Well, going to bed one time in the past, we're talking about the night of Dia de los Reyes. That is an action with a very clear beginning and ending. Do not forget your reflexive pronoun. A lot of you guys had trouble with that. So first we change the reflexive pronoun to, what is the reflexive pronoun for nosotros? Nos. Then we conjugate acostar in the preterite. Nos acostamos. Rápidamente. Por la mañana, yo, same thing. In the morning, I woke up. Well, waking up one time in the past, one specific morning, has a very clear beginning and ending. We conjugate despertarse for yo in the preterite. Me desperté. Don't forget your accent mark. Y, I went to see my gifts. Again, leaving your bedroom, walking down the stairs, going to see your gifts one time in the past has a clear beginning and ending. It's an action. Yo fui a ver mis regalos. El árbol de Navidad, a lot of you guys had trouble with this. Now, yes, we are talking about the Christmas tree that we interacted with or saw one day, but we're describing it. With description, we use the imperfect. So, el árbol de Navidad era bonito y grande y tenía muchas decoraciones. Imperfect, imperfect. Y allí, debajo del árbol, había muchos regalos. All of these are describing the Christmas tree. Now we go back to an action, not a description. I received un tren y muchos juguetes. Well, to receive one time in the past is the preterite, yo recibí. Accent mark is important. Los reyes eran muy generosos. So guys, I hope this PowerPoint helped you out a little bit. If there are any further questions, just let me know. All right, thanks.